Today's guest is Kathy Fritz, who is a board certified master hormone coach who helps women in perimenopause and menopause experience relief from hormonal symptoms like fatigue, hot flashes, moodiness, and insomnia. Her clients lose weight, they rediscover their energy, feel sexy, and stop thinking they're losing their minds. Kathy's background in education gives her the expertise to individualize the material so her clients can go from where they are to where they want to be. Kathy, thank you very much for being on. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a delight to be here, and thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love it. And we've had a few coaches and experts in your area on the podcast already. I know it's such an important topic that is, I think, so often misunderstood and overlooked, but by a lot of women, because conventionality says otherwise, that these things cannot be solved, etc. So I'm a big proponent of what you do. So I'd love for you to just dive into, like, how did you get to doing what you're doing? Kind of what's your story into getting into this work?
Sure. So, as is often the case, my story starts with my own hormonal imbalance that I went to my doctor about, and she, because of her training, said, "Well, go on the pill. I'll take care of it." And as you and I both know, and probably many of your listeners, that actually doesn't address the root cause. That just masks the symptoms. And it goes one step further. It cuts down on the communication between the brain and the ovaries, which is actually the opposite of what you want to do when you have a hormonal imbalance. You want to open those lines of communication. So it didn't feel right to just go on the pill to try to solve this. So I started, doing my own research. And man, was there a total void of information, mainstream information. It was like, wait, why isn't anybody talking about this? And so I used to be a teacher. That was my first vocation. And when I, as a teacher, see this lack of information or misinformation, there's a desire to share what the real information is, what is actually happening, to educate. And so that's how I began on my journey. The shift from educator to coach was a really interesting one for me. I think a lot of teachers come to coaching thinking like, oh, it's like one-on-one tutoring kind of. It's not, as you know, it's very different. And so that happened more gradually as I took additional certification coach courses to get to where I am now. In the States, the only certification for health coaches that actually has any real gravitas is to be board certified. It's called an NBC HWC. I got 6 letters after my name. And so that was really influential in my process of shifting from educator to coach.
Beautiful. And I mean, it comes up so often on this podcast and the clients that I work with, right? Like, where your mess becomes your message, right? That there's this instigating moment where you have this troubling experience, and then suddenly that becomes the catalyst for doing, something with a greater purpose. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that. It mirrors so many, like I said, guests and clients. It mirrors my own story in many ways. So what I'd love to then just dive right into is really just exploring how I can support you today. So what are like the top problems, whether with you as like the leader of your business or within your business, that you're facing right now?
So the top, kind of struggles I have.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, I would say generating regular discovery calls is definitely a challenge. That consistency has been, it's just, it's on, it's off, it's on, it's off. There's not like that kind of more consistent, gradual experience. And that's frustrating. Second, I would say, is figuring out how to serve my audience on social media. Um, I don't always understand why certain posts do as well as they do and why others don't. I'll really love a post, put it out there, and it's not well received. I'll do something kind of off the cuff, and it's like the best post in 2 weeks. So I'd say that's definitely a challenge for me. And um, I would say additionally, some mindset around money is a problem for me.
Got it. So as far as this container today, right? What do you think is the most relevant to dive into out of those three?
I would like to dive into the money mindset.
Okay, perfect. So, yeah, why don't you tell me more about that then?
As I mentioned, I'm a teacher by training. And so, but as far back as I can remember in my working life, I always did work that I found really meaningful, but tended to not be super high paying. And so that was, kind of when I was younger, I worked at, a daycare center, I worked at a camp. I wasn't making as much money as some of my peers at that point. And then I went to school knowing I intended to become a teacher. I got a master's degree in teaching in my, kind of fifth year at the same school. And my first income was low. I was a first year teacher and I lived at home. And so it was low. I continued to move up as I worked, in teaching. We work with years experience on one side and then number of credits on the other side. So I would take a course here and there to kind of move up, one way, and then I was naturally moving up the other way. And that felt good, making progress, right? And I would look at like that top point down here and I would say like, oh, someday, I'll be making good money as a teacher. But I never got there because I started having children and I didn't want to work full time. And so I did work part-time at the school I was at for a year. And then they said I had to come back full time. So I left. And then I started virtual teaching before it was like cool and trendy. This is all pre-COVID. I just want to trendsetter here. Just want to put that out there. So virtual teaching, you make even less money than regular teaching. And the way you make more money with virtual teaching is by taking on more students. And again, I did not want to be full-time. So I was in another position where I really loved the work I was doing and I wasn't making a lot of money. And in the meantime, my husband's career has been incredibly successful and I'm grateful for that. And he's continued to be able to provide for our family and the needs that we have. So there's also that piece going on of like, oh, but my husband is working and who's working full time. And, my salary is just extra, like whatever I make, like, it's just nice to have. It's like, money we can use towards a vacation or something like that.
Got it. So it's kind of like bonus money, almost
It's
like
like
that sort of
bonus
thing.
money. Yeah.
Okay.
Unexpected bonus money.
Okay. Got it. So I guess when I listen to that from the outside looking in, there's like this through line of like my past dictates what is possible in my future, right? Like the reason where I'm at and the reason that my mindset is because of all of these circumstantial things of where I came up and I know that has a connection. I'm not discounting that at all, but it just kind of landed that way of like, well, this is just the way that it is. So kind of like what do I do? That's the sense that I got. So what lands or doesn't land for you from that reflection?
So I agree that my past is impacting it. I might even take one more step and say, not only is it impacting the possibility of my future, but it's really impacting my expectation of my future, which is that I will continue to be making a little bit of money, but it's never going to really impact our lives.
Got it. So in that instance, because you're very self-aware, right? Like nothing that I've just shared with you is earth-shatteringly new, but by any stretch. So knowing what you know about this pattern, knowing what you know about your story and your mindset around these issues, why do you think it's hard to change?
Why is it hard to change that particular belief?
Like you're aware of everything. You
Yeah.
can see all the pieces interplaying together. So if you know it, why do you feel like it's so hard for you to change it?
I think it speaks to how deeply grounded that belief is and to a confusion as to what to do with it when it's so deeply grounded.
Okay. So what if you started there, that it's so deeply grounded that I don't really know how to uproot it?
Okay, so that in and of itself is a belief, is what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay.
So what lands for you there?
I've never thought of that in and of itself as its own belief that's helping to root the belief. That makes sense.
Yep. Yeah. Kind of like a belief within a belief.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So looking at that further, what's your take on or attitude on change? Like, is it hard to change? Is it easy to change?
Change takes work,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm very capable of it. I think I've changed a lot, especially when I became a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think it's very possible, but I think it takes commitment, consistency, and time.
Okay. So do you see how that's perfectly reflective of the deeply grounded nature of your money expectation?
I do. I guess I am. I see the fault in my money expectation. I'm having a harder time seeing the fault in my belief around change.
Okay. So tell me more about that. What's not landing for you?
I don't think it's that it's not landing. It's just that it's such a truth to my experience that change takes consistency, time. Um, I said one more word and I'm blanking on it. Sorry, I'm on day 8 of COVID, so there's a little brain fog.
It's okay. It's all good. It's all good.
um, so like that is almost like to me not even a belief but a truth.
Mm-hmm.
And so realizing that that's money mindset might actually be stemming from or being held onto by something that I haven't even really considered as a block or as a belief before is like,
Okay. Good. So we're making some ground. So that's fair. So what I just want to reflect back to you here is I don't necessarily agree that it's like a money, like it is a money mindset. Yes, like fine, we can put it under that umbrella, but really I think more nuanced and specific to you, it's the money expectation, right? Like the expectation I have is perfectly reflective of my history. And because that's the expectation, there's very, very little room for imagination and possibility that it could be different,
I
right?
think that's fair. Yeah.
Okay. And then rooted within that is also there is truth to the fact that yes, change takes commitment, it takes consistency, it takes, some work to do it. But I think the more nuanced reflection here for you is that like it's this thing that it kind of feels a little bit ominous, right? Like it's like like if I'm gonna do this, like I have to like dedicate and do this and chip away. Like the prevailing energy is like it needs to be hard rather than easy. Like this
Yeah.
is not a small thing. Okay, so
Yeah.
again,
I
why don't
would
you
agree
reflect
with
back
that.
to me what lands there?
I mean, certainly that it's going to be hard, that change is hard. Any worthwhile change is hard. If I wanted to just change my, I don't know, lipstick color, that wouldn't be very hard. But changing a belief around money, or even deeper, a belief that I had held as a truth, that would be hard.
Right. So any worthwhile change is hard. The expectation of money is low
Mhm.
or cannot go past my past. Right. So if you're looking at all of those things, how do you think they impact your business?
So I think it shows why my growth has been really slow or slower than I wanted it to be. I think it also is showing up in not knowing what direction I definitely want to go in with my business. Um, as you know, as an entrepreneur, there's so many directions you can go in, even when you're, in a niche. But um, I have a lot of ideas and sometimes feel like I'm spreading myself too thin through those ideas. Um, and so I think perhaps that is actually related to what we've talked about thus far.
Perfect. So why don't you share with me what your relation to it is?
Can you ask that question in a different way? What do you mean by my relation to what?
So you said, okay, I believe my growth is slow. I don't know which direction to go in. So I'm spreading myself thin. So you made a connection that that's related to change is hard, money expectation is low. What's like, I have an idea of what that might be, but I'm curious what is your idea of what that
Okay.
is?
So my kind of aha here is that this idea that I've held as truth is impacting my business, and it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because change is so hard and slow. This change from educator to coach is hard and slow, and I'm not surprised by that.
Okay. So what's coming up for you internally when you share this? Like what's the feeling around it? What's the body sense around it?
A little bit of self-irritation, like, you have this belief and it's holding you back. Why do you have it? Why haven't you released it? You've done plenty of inner work. um, what's the deal here?
Okay. So I think that the first thing I just want to reflect back to you is it's like what got you here. Meaning so oftentimes when I speak to clients or when I speak to guests, that reaction oftentimes comes up when I reflect back something new. It's like, well, what the hell? Like I've done all this work, I've committed to all this stuff, I've done X, Y, Z, whatever. It should have worked. And what I want to invite you to consider is that without that work, you probably wouldn't be here exploring this thing, right?
Hmm.
Like to look at this process not as one and done, but rather as ongoing, like hygiene,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I've cleaned up to this point, but the next evolution of my business and my desire to create something new doesn't have room for what's still not completely cleaned up inside of me, right? So just like brushing our teeth isn't like ever complete, neither is this work. And I share that to just A, normalize the experience you're having, and then B, to just take away the need for the judgment of like, wow, what the hell? Like this was all like a waste, and whatever else might be coming up, right? That it's actually very normal to be here, and you should celebrate the work that you've done because it's opening you up to release what's not serving you anymore to go to that next level. So what's coming up for you there?
Oh, just that I say similar things to my clients.
Yeah.
And so it feels like, oh yeah, like it's nice. This is why coaches have coaches, right? Because we're all still working on stuff.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's why I always say I honor anybody who's willing to walk their own talk, right? And actually take their own medicine. And yes, to be fair, it's funner to sit on this side of the table than it is on the receiving end.
I
I've
don't
been
know.
on
I'm
both.
having fun.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, perfect. So that all makes sense. And one of the things I wanted to also just poke into is like you started this whole conversation with like tactical issues, right? Not generating regular discovery calls, the inflow of them is inconsistent. How do I serve people online? So basically like a messaging offer type question. So have you like done or invested in any sort of like business coaching to solve those problems, or this is like what you've been able to figure out on your own?
No, I've invested for sure.
Okay, perfect. So there is a skill set that you have built there. It's just not amounting to what you thought it might amount to
Yet.
yet. Okay, perfect. So in that instance, and in relation to what we just spoke about, how do you think these limiting beliefs have distorted your ability to apply what you learned in those business programs?
I would say that, again, if there is, a lesson or a message in, the course I took, or in the materials I was given, or in a meeting I had, that it's maybe only being allowed to get so far, and that were that block not there, maybe that message or that skill could just get a little bit deeper into me and impact my business.
Okay. So tell me a bit more about that. Because again, I think I have an idea of what you mean, but just for the sake of clarity, if you could break that down even further.
So let's try to give a concrete example. When I was working with a particular business coach, I think sometimes these limiting beliefs that I hold would impact, a session that, I'm taking notes during our session and then I'm going back to them and I'm trying to apply them. And I'm just thinking that perhaps these beliefs only allowed me to apply what he was teaching me to a certain extent. Does that
Perfect.
clarify it a bit?
It does, right? And I think it's actually perfectly reflective of the expectations,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like if my expectations are set low, then I'm only going to take in and apply enough to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Putting it more broadly, it's not that we fear or resist change, it's that we never want to go against our beliefs, meaning we do plenty of things, but we generally don't do them, or we don't do things that go against our identity and go against what we believe. So in this instance, if I have the expectation that I don't like, all I need to do is make bonus money, cool. Then all I need to do to apply from this skill building thing is really just pay the minimum amount because it's just bonus money. So it's all good. So what lands for you there?
A lot. I just have to let my dog out. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. It happens all the time. So I will fill the dead air here and really just dive into this aspect of
Otherwise, she'd be
okay.
barking the whole time.
Okay, that's all good. Yeah, yeah. So I was filling in the dead air, but yeah,
Oh,
you're welcome to dive into whatever your response was going to be.
okay. So, could you just repeat back to me? Because I want to make sure that I'm in the right frame of mind.
Yeah, 100%. So when I asked you, okay, you came into the podcast talking about these tactical things that still aren't being figured out by you in order to move the business forward. So the messaging, the offers, the generating regular discovery calls, where I was like, okay, well, cool. Is there a skill gap there? Like you've never done the business coaching to know how to do this? Like, no, I actually have. Okay, great. So now knowing that that's a fact and knowing that these expectations about how much you can make are also there as a limiting belief, my reflection back to you was, well, if you're saying that I never really applied that business coaching to its fullest extent, my kind of, it's not even rebuttal, but just again, a secondary reflection was that you actually did apply it to the extent that you believed you needed to apply it. If
Mm-hmm.
my expectation is all I need to generate is bonus money and that's all I'm capable of given my past, then you don't need to go all in for everything on the business coaching side. You don't need to
Mm.
push yourself to be more visible. You don't need to whatever invest in the funnel or the ads or showing up in a different way or changing your messaging or going through discomfort of saying things in a different way, asking for a bigger sale, like all of the things that might be necessary to go to where you want to go, because the expectation is all I need to do is make bonus money. So really that was kind of what I was sharing. So what's landing there for you?
It's that, even that term bonus money, right? That it's just like, oh, it's, nice to have. It doesn't really impact our lives one way or the other. And that is what I've continued to do. When we were first starting out, yeah, my salary was necessary for us to, pay our bills and stuff. But as our lives changed, that was no longer the case. And so, my income reflects that shift.
Yeah, it's the circumstances no longer necessitate like you really to like push beyond these things. So
Mm-hmm.
it's within this comfort zone of, well, it's okay. It's expect like be nice, but the expectations aren't kind of there, right? So again, does that land or not?
Yeah, it definitely does.
Okay, perfect. So if you look at it even more specifically now, as far as like, okay, figuring out how to serve people on social media. So if your expectation is to never, let's just say, make a lot, the direct implication of that is I'm also serving less people, or I'm serving them at a lesser capacity, or I'm not reaching as many people as possible. So how do you think that implication impacts how you show up in social media?
I think it impacts, my consistency. It's a lot easier to say like, oh, it's 8:30 at night and I haven't done anything yet. Like I'll just skip it and do it tomorrow. Instead of, really buckling down and being like, all right, it's 8:30 at night, let's get going. um, as well as, maybe not being quite as thoughtful when I'm putting something out there and just saying like, okay, I just got to get this done, instead of coming at it from a, how do I best serve the people that are interested in my offer, that do need help with their hormones, that are struggling in midlife and are looking for someone to help them, not feel the way that they're feeling.
100%, right? And if you took that even a step further, how do you think these beliefs impact, when and how you ask for the sale and how large of a sale you actually ask for?
So I don't know about the when I ask, because I generally don't ask for the sale until the discovery call,
Mm-hmm.
until I've assessed if this person's a good fit or not for what I do have an expertise in, and make sure that I believe, but even more importantly, that they believe that they can make some changes in their life to get the results that they want. So I'm not so sure about the when. Um, the how might come across as less invested in the sale, less invested in the client. Certainly it's not my intention, but this is all making me wonder, like, is it possible that the way I'm coming across in messaging and in discovery calls when they're there is not invested, which is not the case at all. But if I'm just kind of like, well, if I get the sale, I do. If I don't, like, it's no big deal. It's just bonus money. Then, that really changes the energy.
100%, right? And to be fair, being detached in a sales conversation is obviously a good thing, right? Because you don't
Mhm.
want to come off as needy. But it's more the lackadaisical kind of attitude towards the impact and the change that you can make for the other person, right? It's right in line with, well, this is just bonus money, so like whatever, right? So it
Mhm.
goes back to what you said about the service, right? Am I really in tune with the service that I can provide and the real impact that I can create for these women? And to just bring it back to, so it's totally fair as far as like when I ask for the sale. I think that's actually beautiful. And to rephrase really my question there is like, how often are you creating the opportunities to say your offer? How often are you asking, hey, let's do this? If you are XYZ, let's do this, right? Is that as frequent as it could be if the inner beliefs and the attitude was different?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't tell you the last time I invited anybody into a discovery call.
Right. So now going back to what we started with, well, I don't generate regular discovery calls. That's an inconsistent flow. I mean, there's a very simple tactical solution to that. Well, if you just ask for more offers, you're probably going to get more like hand raises, right?
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Right. I know it seems very simple, but it's like, again, a perfect reflection of the lenses through which you view your business, the decisions within your business, and the actions that you ultimately take.
Hmm.
It's like you don't need further coaching to just test the offer you already have more often in what you already lecture. It's like if you change nothing else but literally added that call to action every time, probably something would be different.
Hmm.
Okay. So what's landing for you there?
Just this awareness that, like, I can't tell you the last time that I phrased a post where I invited anyone into a chat, a call.
Yeah. So I commend you for the openness to just, receive that, because I know when the mirror is kind of shining, you're like, oh my God, like, well, this is
Again, I appreciate the mirror because there's frustration, right? There's frustration when our business isn't doing what we want it to do. And there's this, desire to look externally. What other skills do I need? What do I need to get better at? But also a sneaking suspicion, right? That maybe it's not so much what I am doing as much as what I'm thinking.
correct. And so let's just say you go down the road of acquiring more skills, whether that's I get another certification to be a better practitioner, or I do another, business course or coaching container, whatever, mastermind. Doing those things, what does it actually keep you away from facing?
Well, those inner beliefs that need to
Correct.
change.
You put a nice bow on, like you talked about at the beginning, root causes,
Yeah.
right? Like you just find another thing to treat the symptoms, but the root causes remain.
Yeah. It's like putting, as you said, a bow on the package as is and not trying to change the package. Whether or not you need a new bow is a different discussion, but truly the package itself has to change.
Correct. So yeah, again, I commend you for how quickly you allow that in. I was like, okay, yeah, I see it. So kudos to you there.
Thank you.
To switch gears a little bit, if you lost the ability to engage in these limiting beliefs, who or what would you be?
Oh, what a fascinating question. Um, I don't know. I've never thought about that.
Okay. So also an interesting observation, right? I am so grounded and rooted in these inner limits that I can't even use my imagination to consider who would I be beyond them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what comes up with that reflection?
That's a great thing to journal when we're done here. Again, it's not something I've ever really considered or wondered. And in a lot of areas, I can be pretty quick and decisive, but something like this would definitely take some time to really layer, to pull back the layers of that. And I'm sure I could answer superficially quickly right now to you, but I don't think it would be a very deep response.
And that's fair that there's no report card at the end of this. So, no worries on that end. But are you open to exploring what that might be like?
Absolutely.
Okay. So same question again, right? If you lost this expectation that you can't make a lot of money, or you lost this expectation that you can only make bonus money, who or what would you be?
I think I would be getting more discovery calls.
Okay.
And I think I would be bringing a different energy to those discovery calls, to my social media posts. Um, I think I would even have a different feeling about my role in my family. Um, I think I would feel more, a few different words that are like popping up, but they're not quite the right word. At first I thought pride, but I'm really proud of the work I do. I love it. Then I thought excitement, and it's like, no, I am excited about the work I do. I love it. There's an emotion there that I'm having a hard time identifying, that I think it would relate to how I feel about my role within my family.
Would empowerment resonate with you?
It's almost like I feel a little more important. So you
Okay.
said empowerment, and that to me led to feeling like a little more important to the family. I know I have a lot of value as a mother and a wife, um, but it would bring me another kind of role that would be very welcome, and that would be as contributor, financial contributor.
Okay. So I think that's actually very interesting because, right, what was the nuance of your mindset belief is bonus money. I just bring in bonus money, right? If I lost the ability to have that belief, oh, well, now what's behind that is actually I would feel like a contributor. I would feel I'm more important. I'm more than just like the bonus. I'm more than just, like
The
I'm
nice to have.
the nice to have. Exactly.
And again, I go back to important. I'm important to have. And there was a time that my income was important to have
Hmm.
in our family. And would that would be impactful to feel that way again.
It would be. And the nuance that I want to reflect there is when it was important for your income to be what it was, is when it was absolutely necessary. Like the circumstances necessitated you to step up or the equivalent of whatever that was in that situation. Now, the necessity is gone. So, really, since the necessity is gone, it all shifts to being internal. So, the standards that are set are actually set by you. And as you can see, given where you've set your standards, you're perfectly getting the reflection of that.
Mhm.
Bonus, right? Nice to have, doesn't matter that much. Perfectly reflective of that. So really, when I'm listening to you even just explore the possibility of who would you be here, and the reason why I ask you to tune into empowerment is where you want to go really is okay. I have to make a choice to actively step through all of the discomforts of these limiting beliefs, change my identity to somebody who is important, who is a contributor, who can stand in her own power to create more than just necessity, right? Who can thrive, not just survive, right? Going
Mm.
back to the role model, it's that, like, you know what I mean? Like, this is now a changing of identity of not just how you show up, but also how your immediate world sees you, who you are in relation to your family, who you are in relation to your kids, to your husband, to show them, right, what's possible. Like, there's a lot in that one, statement and reflection. So again, what lands for you?
There's a lot. In that one statement, there's a lot. And so I'm just you've opened that whole like imagine piece. And so I'm imagining what would it be like as a wife to feel like a contributor instead of the one who spends the money? What would it feel like as a mom to, take my kids and my husband on a vacation that I paid for? Um, to be able to say, I'd really like our kids to go to this integrative doctor. It's all out of pocket. I got it. I mean, now the imagination's really started. See
Mm-hmm.
what you began?
Absolutely. Yeah. So from that energy, that enthusiastic energy, what would you create
In my business,
in your business and subsequently in your life?
I would create a more consistent income. I would create a wait list for my services. I would create more ease and joy in my business and then in my life. I think those would be good starts.
I think it was a beautiful start, right? And what I just want to reflect back to you, it's like we've gone from it's actually impossible for me to even consider this. And like I'll have to like again, it takes work, it takes commitment. I have to go journal a bit. I have to like set some time away to like actually like do this and do my whole thing. Right. It has to be hard. Or you kind of just jumped into it and unpacked a really beautiful vision. Right.
Mm.
I have a different role in the family. Be different energy to discovery calls. I'd be getting more discovery calls. I'd feel more important. I'd be a contributor. I'd create more consistent income with a wait list. There'd be more joy and ease in what I do. I'd show up in my power. Right. You just did it in 5 minutes.
All right. So I guess it wasn't that hard.
Right. But again, it it wasn't self-elicited. And I get it.
Mhm.
That's why like it has the benefit of somebody putting you into that container. But I'm just reflecting that back to you to see how your actions, decisions, and filters of how you navigate the world perfectly reflect the beliefs that we kind of unpacked here today.
Mhm.
And
They
again,
do.
not out
You're
of
right. They
judgment,
do. No,
but just
no.
out of
I don't feel
observation.
judged. I don't feel judged at all. Maybe by myself a little, but I'm trying to release that because, but I don't feel judged.
Perfect. So I know there was like a lot of stuff that came up in this conversation. Does that feel complete for you as far as like mapping all this out, or is there still something left outstanding?
Well, there probably is always something outstanding, but as far as today and what I brought, I feel complete.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, in that case, I want to thank you for allowing yourself to be witnessed in this way, because I think it's super important, especially for women, to hear this, because just through society you'll naturally fall into these roles like without ever like questioning them, like these thoughts, these sentiments of like bonus and side and like whatever all of those things are. um and I think it's totally unnecessary, and I believe it needs to be changed. So the fact that you're allowing yourself to go there, and for others to witness you, I think is beautiful. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
um and yeah, floor is yours to just close us off, let everybody know where to find you, who's the best person to find you. Floor is yours for that.
Sure. I mean, I guess if this spoke to anybody in terms of the vulnerability piece and you're having any Me Too moments, you can feel free to reach out to me through my website, through my email, through my Instagram. All of that is Kathy Fritz Coaching. So I'm Kathy at Kathy Fritz Coaching, kathyfritzcoaching.com, on Instagram at Kathy Fritz Coaching. Keep it simple, right? And I just want to say again, thanks for your expertise and ability to help me sift.
You're very welcome. So appreciate you for that. And as always, we'll include all of your links in the show notes. But Kathy, thank you very much for coming on. And for everybody else listening, we'll see you on the next one.